I may have to do it from my end. No?
No, it's on.
Okay.
That was a quick intro.
That was a very quick intro. Welcome, everyone. We've got Sharon Weinstein and Dina Redinger, and we have a guest today with us. And I'm going to let you start off for us, Sharon.
Okay, and just for the record, we don't need an intro with music. We'll make our own music. So, hi, everyone. A warm welcome to the Think Differently by Design listening tour with your hosts, Dina Redinger and Sharon Weinstein, co-authors of the book Think Differently, 18 Strategies to Fix Broken Thinking. We invite you to engage with your peers and us as we address issues related to nurses, nursing, and of course, the workforce. In our studies of those in leadership positions, we have found that success happens when we ask the right questions and solve the right problems. And our respective healthcare and writing careers make us uniquely qualified for this role as facilitators. We invite you to be a part of a future program by participating in a 30-minute discussion using the LinkedIn Live platform. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's show. We'll be conducting live interviews on Tuesdays and Thursdays, probably through the first quarter of the year. And our goal is to provide nurse leaders with an opportunity to be heard, to express their opinions, to share ideas, and to tell their stories. But before we start, we want to acknowledge you and thank you for joining us today. We have viewers from across the globe, so please use the chat. Let us know where you're from. If you're seeing this on replay, we will still respond to your questions. And today, we welcome Kristine Powell, MSN RN CEN NEA-BC, and Fellow of the American Academy of Emergency Nursing. Kristine Powell has more than 35 years. Of course, she started at age 12, like me. 35 years of emergency and trauma nursing experience, and has served in various roles, including clinical staff nurse, educator, trauma program manager, and progressively more important formal leadership positions. She is currently the Director of Emergency Services for all of Baylor Scott and White Health based in Dallas. Board certified in emergency nursing, and as a nurse executive advanced, she was inducted as a fellow in the Academy of Emergency Nursing in 2015. She is a lifetime member of the Emergency Nurses Association and currently serves on local, state, and national committees. She also lectures locally, on the state level, and at national conferences. And she has multiple publications in emergency care journals and books. I just want to start by saying that knowing Kristine, if I happen to have to be in an ER, I want to be in one under her domain. Nina, over to you.
I would totally 100% agree with that. So, welcome, Kristine. And it's an honor to have you on our show today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, and we want to jump right into something that's fascinating for us. And you've got this acronym it's got true grit. And I want to know, what does that mean? And what in the heck does that have to do with resilience? So tell us about grit.
Sure. Well, I will tell you that when I've been an educator for a long time. I started off education, in educating clinical nurses 25 years ago. And historically, when I first got started, I was doing a lot of clinical presentations. I wanted them to understand pathophysiology. I wanted to understand the science of what we do. And over time, and as I'm in the field for longer and longer amounts of time, I became interested in other things, resilience being one of them. I have been excited to be an emergency nurse for the many years I have been. I've been 100% dedicated to learning my craft and doing really well in it. And resilience to me, I've seen so many of my colleagues and others stay in the field for a few years, and then they go do something else. And that's the decision that they have to make. But for people that want to be in the ER, I want to help them build that resilience and grit. I want them to continue on with their growth, to find joy in what they do. And what true grit is to me, first of all, it's a neuroscience-based approach to building resilience, to leading people, And within that approach, I also deploy in my educational program some neuroscience of resilience, neuroscience of learning concepts so that the message will stick with people. I also provide a lot of evidence. People want to know why, they want to know how things work. They're not going to take somebody's just their word on it. So I give them a lot of evidence about what neurotransmitters do when we purposefully take action to do specific things to build our resilience. And so do you want to get me to get into the grit framework and tell you a little bit
I
about it?
do. Let's jump in there because I want to talk about probably one of the most stressful careers that you can be in emergency medicine, right? And so it would be interesting to talk a little bit as you go through your acronym, but also what is the impact on this neuroscience of just stress? Because that's where everything is.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, stress can affect every single one of our body systems. And so if we are really stressed out in our lives, then it can affect our physiologic health. And so obviously our physiologic health can also affect our mindset and our way of thinking. And my approach to teaching grit in this manner is to help people understand how all of these items tie together. And again, the things that they can do in their life to proactively manage their own health and well-being, and using this grit framework can help them do that.
Perfect. Well, tell us about grit.
Sure, happy to. And so what I use is I use the grit framework, GRIT, to help people learn how to build grit. That's one of our neuroscience concepts, give them something easy to remember. And so the G stands for generosity. There's some good research out there that shows that when you give, you also get. So I encourage people to be generous with their time, with their patience, and especially with their kindness. We recognize that people all have challenges when they're in an emergency department. They're probably a little worried, they're concerned, they don't know what's going to happen, they don't know what the outcome of some of these tests are, and we really need to be kind. And we recognize that some people do regress and maybe misbehave or act out when they're in an emergency department because they're just worried and scared. And we take that into consideration as we're providing that care. So we need to be generous with our time, with our patience, and especially with our kindness. And when we realize that when we give, we also get, and that helps us build our own resilience. And there's neurotransmitters that fire when we are generous, that helps us build our own resilience. The R stands for reframe. And this is very prevalent throughout the resilience literature. We get stressed when we are out of our comfort zone. And we find ourselves out of our comfort zone frequently, especially if they're a new nurse in an emergency department, but really anybody, anytime they are out of their comfort zone, their stress levels go up, the bad neurotransmitters go up, the bad physiologic hormones increase, and that can affect health. So when we take the approach of reframing, this can really help our stress levels when we're out of our comfort zone. And what I would like to see is people reframing to a positive mindset, and that is so important. So reframe to a positive mindset, embrace the experience when you feel uncomfortable, and tell yourself, this may hurt right now, but I am learning and I am growing. And when I come out of this, which I will, I am going to have built a stronger skill set so that I can manage these things better in the future. I think we also have to expect change in our environment. We're going to have to expect that things will change. We're going to be out of our comfort zone. So when you expect that change, then you're ready to move into that positive mindset. And we just want people to be ready to adapt and to pivot quickly. And we learned a lot in COVID, especially in the early part of this pandemic. We learned a lot about being ready to change, even on a day-by-day basis, and pivot quickly. And some of the part of the presentation talks about this effect on our mindset and how fatiguing it could be, but also how much of an experience it can be that helps us learn and grow. Now the I So we'll do a little boost. The G stands for generosity. The R stands for reframing to a positive mindset. And the I stands for insight. And you need to have insight to your own needs. You need to take care of yourself, your body, your mind, your spirit. I talk about a concept called ikigai, which means balance. And so we have to find that right balance. And when we're not feeling balanced, we need to kind of do some reflection and figure out what's missing, and then go actively, and again, be proactive in seeking out what is missing so that you can find your balance. I encourage people to take care of their body. So eat well, a little, exercise, stay well hydrated, get enough sleep. Don't introduce toxins into your body. We have to take care of our bodies, as well as taking care of our mind by reframing to that positive mindset and staying curious and continuing to learn and grow. And then also our spirit. We have to take care of our spirit. We find joy in what we do. And if we're not finding that joy, what is missing? And, we can help ourselves, and we can also help others find the joy. So we find balance through self-care, and we want to be reflective about our own personal experiences. What happened? What did I learn from this? What am I missing here? What do I need to go, learn a little bit more about? So that reflection is really important on insight and having that proactive approach. And there are so many people, and myself included at times, where I don't really embrace that work-life culture. And I've gotten much better at it over the years. And I really want to be that role model to say, this is what that looks like. So again, I'm still a work in progress, but this is something that I've really committed to doing well.
Chris, if I might, we're all guilty of that. I wrote 5 books on the topic. And last night at midnight, I decided, oh my God, I'm slipping. And I pulled back from something because of that. So yes, we all need to be in control, because we can't drink from an empty cup. It doesn't work.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm glad it's so important.
I completely agree. And I have had actually some of your books in my collection. I have.
Okay.
And so I appreciate that. And I know that that's something that you feel really strongly about also. Yeah. All right. So a quick boost. G is generosity. R is reframe to a positive mindset. I is insight to your own personal needs. T is thankfulness. And again, lots of information in the literature about being thankful. As an ER nurse, we make a difference in people's lives. And so we want to be thankful for those opportunities. And sometimes our patients are not really in their own mindset to let us know how much they appreciate it. And occasionally you will get feedback from your patients. But we know we make a difference in people's lives. And sometimes even if outcomes are not great, we make a difference in the lives of their families and the people that hold that patient very important. So we're thankful for those opportunities we have. And we also have to be thankful for the things we have in our life, our family, our friends, our work environment, our own health. And even, the good things are there, but also be thankful for those things that may not be so good, those things that challenge us, because they do help us learn new skill sets. And so we are thankful for all of these different opportunities. And while COVID was very painful for us to go through, we learned a lot during the COVID pandemic. And the title of my presentation is actually True Grit. Can we make resilience the pandemic? And I use a lot of examples during COVID. And this was one of the reasons I put it together, was to help people get through all of the difficulties they were having. So that is my grit framework. I speak it, I live it, and I'm excited to share it.
So I have a question for you, if you
Go
don't
ahead.
mind, which is very interesting. So out of your GRIT, where do you feel that people get stuck the most?
Oh,
Well,
good one.
so, I think the right answer to that question is it depends. I think that everybody struggles with work-life balance. So that is one area that I stay continually focused on. Again, I've not always been really good at that. But I think also sometimes it's reframing if the situation is particularly difficult. And it's something that they are extremely uncomfortable with, then they might have issues with reframing. Some days, if maybe if they haven't had a lot of sleep, then maybe they're struggling with their generosity and their kindness. So I really do think it depends on the situation, and that this is the reason why when I present this information, it all comes together, and each one of these different pieces of the framework works to enhance the other pieces of the framework.
I love that. That's what Sharon and I have found is that reframing is the most difficult. So it's
Reframing is
interesting
the
when I
most
ask
difficult.
you that,
Yes.
yes. So very good. Back to you, Sharon.
I wanted to know, first of all, somebody in Phoenix wants to know, is grit also a synonym for determination?
Yeah, I think that it could be, right? So we are determined to be resilient, to get through our days, if not get through our careers. So I think determination is a good term to use when we talk about grit.
Okay, and to me personally, when you talk about gratitude, every day that you wake up on this side of the earth is going to be a really good day.
That's exactly
Because look at the
right.
alternatives. We've all been there.
Yes.
We have, especially those of us in nursing. So how do you apply this grit messaging within the workplace when you have new grads? Especially new grads since COVID, a lot of them had no clinical experience whatsoever. They were resigned to sim labs and other sorts of things, never hands-on, never touching anyone, couldn't put together the barrel of a needle and syringe, just didn't get it. How do you apply grit with them?
Thank you. And you're right. There were a lot of clinical experiences that we usually see in nursing school that a lot of our new graduate nurses did not get. Now, I still do a lot of education for clinical nurses and have been a lead faculty in our graduate nurse internship in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I still work a lot with these new nurses and young nurses, and I see them and they're coming out of nursing school and they're so excited to be in the emergency department. And I start off with congratulations. It was a long, hard road to get here and you're here now. And I want you to be happy in emergency nursing and successful for as long as you possibly can. And so I do provide this true grit talk in our graduate nurse internship because I want them to hear early on things that they can start doing proactively to extend their longevity in emergency nursing and in nursing in general. Some people find it's not a good fit for them, and I would encourage them to go find the right fit, but find the joy in what they're doing. So we share this information in our internship with our new graduate nurses. We share the why, right? The neurotransmitters and the neuroscience of resilience. I share the evidence so that they understand why. And I follow up with them. So when I see a nurse in one of the units, I'll ask them, if I know they've been there, I'll ask them about grit and what they're doing. And it just kind of helps them reflect. I'll boost it a bit for them. I also send out emails to all of the people that attend these sessions. I will email them about 6 months later with just a reminder of the grit mnemonic, the grit framework, what it means. And I'll ask them to reflect on circumstances over the past 6 months where they have used these concepts or where they haven't and maybe where they could have. I ask them to commit to grit. And again, neuroscience of teaching, it helps them to remember. I want them to commit to grit, role model, and then I want them to take people with them if they're seeing other people struggling. So I approach this from a number of different ways. I also address nursing leaders, and that's one of my passions, is how can we help nurse leaders stay resilient? They have an extremely hard job, and while they may not be 100% direct bedside nurses, they're supporting those bedside nurses. And if they're demonstrating the commitment to grit, then they can also be the role model for their nursing bedside staff and help them by role modeling.
So they need to walk the walk and talk the talk.
Absolutely.
No question. Okay.
I love this. So the next question I have for you kind of is on the back end of that because it makes me wonder if you've not already done this. Have you created a mentorship program for grit because you're trying to get this throughout systems, Have you done anything on that level yet?
So I will tell you, Baylor Scott and White in general has phenomenal mentoring programs. And so we've got mentoring programs for direct care nurses. We've got mentoring programs that are formal and organized and evidence-based for our nursing leaders. And so I have talked about this concept in some of those mentoring sessions. I've not developed my own mentoring session other than what I've already discussed, but I have talked about this concept in several of the mentoring sessions I've had in the formal mentoring programs that we already embrace at Baylor Scott and White.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder, because one of the questions that we have, how do you get something like this within the system? And it's like, because all systems are broken right now, right? They're just trying to put people back together. I can see grit being a lot of the glue of putting people back together and putting that health back into healthcare. But we have to make sure that we understand, to help people see when they get stuck and how to get unstuck.
And I have done this session also for our nursing, several of our nursing leader groups. Again, every time I do this, I get asked to do it again for a different group. So I have spread this information far and wide. I've also shared it. I'm very active in the Texas Emergency Nurses Association. I've shared this information with the Emergency Nurses Association, put some follow-up information in the Texas ENA newsletter, and have also done this presentation in a, not this particular name, but I've shared these concepts in National Emergency Nursing Association conferences, just trying to spread it as far and wide as possible.
What's got me very interested, and I'm just going to throw this out there, what if you could throw this back to a patient?
Can you clarify?
Yeah, so if I'm a patient, I've been in the ER a lot with my parents recently. Sometimes the fear of just being where you are is really difficult. So, being that generous and reframing the stressful situation, I think that's one of the things we do as caregivers, especially when you're taking care of your parents.
In that sandwich generation, yes.
All the time. Just think about this if this was this, be thankful that you're here, and taking care of yourself, and how to let yourself heal. And sometimes people in emergent situations don't even have time to even think about, can I give myself time to think through and reframe and to even think about the other side of this, issue or this situation? How can I continue to stay mentally resilient to even heal yourself? Because I've seen that with my dad, being in the hospital more recently, just thinking about his own business, having his oxygen drop and is started getting, short runs of VTAC. Nurse runs in. She's like, what are you doing? Well, I'm thinking about my business. Well, I'm like, we better stop thinking about your business and think about yourself.
Better think happy thoughts.
So it's kind of like, I'm thinking too, that grit has quite a bit, even a broader impact as well, not only in nursing, but also for patients.
Right, and I very much agree. This message is not just for nurses. It can really spread to other people who can find themselves in stressful situations. In answer to your question, the population that I primarily deal with in my lifelong career is emergency patients. And so some of them are in a situation where they may not be as open to receiving information. So, part of our assessment of our patients is, what is their current readiness to learn? Sometimes we have to be very, very careful about how much information we throw at them. And sometimes we have to just really touch on the high points about their issues. I don't disagree that this is important information for patients and family members. And there may be a way that as we're assessing readiness of our patients and families to learn and be educated, that we can deploy some very carefully worded comments or very carefully worded questions that get them thinking down this line. But again, it is something that is going to be very dependent on the patient and their family at that moment in time in the emergency department.
Yep. It all comes around to that readiness to learn, because you've said that, right? So readiness to learn, both as, a caregiver, nurse, emergency nurse, and even a patient. So back to you, Sharon.
Yeah, I think that this whole concept is really interesting. Dina, you're exactly right. A lot of what Chris has just been talking about can be applied to all of us in everyday life. There's no question whatsoever. But at the same time, I think that it's really important to look at you're overseeing a network of emergency departments.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you use grit throughout the system? And have nurses commented on how it makes them feel? How does it make them feel knowing that basically you've got their backs? They are not alone in this. We are in
Yeah,
this together.
absolutely. It's appreciated. Again, every time I do this presentation and I teach people about grit, and sometimes I don't, it's not in a formal setting. Sometimes I just get an opportunity to talk to people and I, in about a quick 10-minute discussion, I can review some of the comments and they're interested in learning more. And every time I do the presentation in full, I get asked to do it again. So I've done it for nursing leaders. I've done it for open to staff nurses and leaders at particular hospitals. And I've done it for non-medical people. I had somebody that said, hey, I'm part of this organization. It's not really medical, but this is great information. Can you come do it for me here? And I am very passionate about this topic and about this approach. And I have never once said, no, I can't do it. I will find a way to come and present. And I've done presentations in the evenings. I've done presentations on weekends, and I've done presentations multiple times for non-medical people. And I'm hoping, and they all have, health concerns that they may be dealing with. So I do hope that they take this and it kind of embeds and they can learn a little about how they can improve their own health and their own resilience so that, as a patient, they can use some of these measures to improve their outcomes and, kind of work within the setting that they're in.
If you had to give 3 tips to people, what are the strong takeaways that they should take from this discussion on grit? What do they need to know?
Okay, so thank you for asking that. Takeaways are always difficult, but I really believe that when we talk about grit, don't assume that you're born with it. Don't assume that people, come with an inherent amount of grit and that's that. I want you to believe that grit is something that you can achieve through proactive measures. So you have to take action in order to enhance your grit. So that's one thing, is be proactive and embrace the grit framework. Again, you want to role model, right? And the more you role model, the more you can bring people with you and help them learn grit. So that may be number 2. Then the other thing that, just as it relates to reframing, if something makes you uncomfortable, get into the habit of embracing it. Know that you're going to come out of it with a stronger skill set. Know that you will get out of it. If something makes you uncomfortable, just dive in. Find your mentors, find somebody that can help you with that. I wouldn't say dive into a really complicated clinical scenario for a new graduate nurse. Grab that charge nurse, grab that clinical coach, bring them with you and have them help you with it. Find your mentors, reach out to them proactively and bring people with you. And then, always be excited about learning and be excited about these opportunities. Because if you were never uncomfortable, then you're really never learning.
Right.
Exactly.
One of my favorite phrases that I use is a smooth sea never made a skillful sailor, right?
Ooh,
Smooth seas
I like that.
all along, you're really not going to build a skill set. So expect you're going to have challenges and just be ready to adapt and to learn from it and embrace that I'm learning and growing mindset. So that may have been less than 3, that may have been more than 3, but in a nutshell, that's what I want to say.
But it's a great synopsis and we appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're running short on time. Well, that always happens. We could be talking to some of our guests, especially you, for easily a couple of hours. It's just such fascinating conversation. Dina, do you want to close us down?
Yes, I want to thank you very much for being part of our show, Kristine. And for all those that are listening out there, please join us every Tuesday and Thursday. Take something from what we're doing today. Be a part of the conversation. Share your stories. We've got an amazing retreat that's going to be coming up on November 1st through the 4th in Branson, Missouri to help put the health back into healthcare. So, signing off, have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.